Hello, welcome in. How we doing? I'm Ryan Mosser. That is one of my best friends and co-host David Cahoon. This is the Commissioner's Couch podcast. Come on in, take a seat, and let's talk some fantasy football. Um, as every week, we just want to remind you that the Commissioner's Couch is sponsored by Inside Edge Network and LVP Productions, and also Monster Moments Photography.com. Monster Moments Photography, they're Cleveland's husband and wife based photography team. MOSSOR Moments Photography.com. Going into the buys this week, Broncos, Dolphins, Chargers, and Commanders. So do not start those players.
Please don't.
David is going to go into the injury report today. So I'll let
Yeah,
him take it away.
sweet. Yeah, so injury report got a pretty extensive list from a lot of injuries last week, so I'll try and get through these pretty quickly. Quarterbacks, though, Lamar Laskins from the Ravens has an ankle injury. Dak Prescott has a hip injury, should be questionable, but should be good to go. Michael Penix Jr. has a knee injury and was placed on IR. It looks like his season will be over.
That's sad.
Yeah, I hate that for him. Jackson Dart is still in concussion protocol, but is looking more likely to play this week than not. Jaden Daniels is still out with his elbow. CJ Stroud is still out with a concussion. And Joe Burrow, who is on IR, actually practiced in full today on
In
Wednesday.
full, I didn't know
So,
that. That's huge.
yeah, that's huge.
So when he's
if
talking about he's
you,
going to play by Thanksgiving, I mean, he definitely might mean it. So
he means it. So yeah, big for him and his turf toe. I should have said big toe. Oh well. So yeah, that was the quarterbacks. The running backs. Josh Jacobs has a knee injury. He's week to week, is what it looks like right now. There's a small chance he could play this week. I think it's doubtful though. Jalen Warren has an ankle injury. He's probably out for this upcoming week, and it also is considered week to week. Bashel Tutin has an ankle injury, also week to week. Travis Etienne has a shoulder injury, but still practiced partially today, so should be good to go. Alvin Kamara has an ankle as well, should be good to go as well. Trey Benson, they opened up his 21-day practice window, so should be coming back from IR, which is encouraging to see for that team. Amari DeMarcado has an ankle injury and is out, so don't play him. Bucky Irving is practicing somewhat limited this week. I really hope that he plays because he is electric when he's on the field. Ramondre Stevenson also practiced a little bit limited this week with his toe injury, so he probably is going to be back as well. Isaiah Pacheco has a knee injury, also is questionable, and Samaje Perine is an ankle and is questionable. Wide receivers, Drake London is out with a knee. It's looking week to week as well, which is not as good for him, not as bad as Michael Penix's knee injury was, but it's questionable. Looks like it's week to week. Marvin Harrison is still out with appendicitis, which is crazy that they ruled him out already.
yeah,
Brian Thomas Jr. has an ankle and is questionable. Darius Slayton has a hamstring and is questionable. Chris Godwin legs questionable. Xavier Worthy has an ankle is likely. He practiced limited. Kayshon Boutte has a hamstring, also practiced limited. Alec Aramaner has a hamstring, also limited. Xavier Legette has a hip injury, practice limited. And Curtis Samuel for the Bills has a groin injury and is out. And last but not least, Torrey Horton has a groin injury and was limited today.
yeah, man,
And
lots of injuries.
so many. And then lastly, there's just a few tight ends. But Dalton Kincaid has a hamstring injury and is out. And Sam Laporta is back on IR. So that's the injury update for week 12.
Nice. Yeah, that sucks. I hate injuries, especially this late into the season for sure. So not fun.
No, not at all. Especially when teams trying to make the playoff push and people hurt their knees. So
Right. Yeah. All right, we'll go into our first segment. Our first segment is always hunks and skunks. So hunks are just players that we really like for the week. Skunks are players that we should avoid for the week. Dave, go ahead and go with your first two hunks.
yeah, so the review from last week, I said Jonathan Taylor was a hunk. Obviously, he's the best running back in football right now. It's really not even close to. Like, he is just that dominant this year. And then I also said Devonta Adams is a good sleeper pick for a lot of fantasy teams this year and has done really well. So those are my hunks last week. This week, my hunks that I have the Browns defense as a whole. If you
weird.
have defenses in your league, I recommend picking the Browns team up. They are going up against the Ravens, or not the Ravens. They just played the Ravens.
The Raiders.
They're going up against the Raiders this week, and if they can shut down Brock Bowers, they're going to be able to shut down that whole offense and create a lot of turnovers. Geno Smith is a gunslinger, and they should be able to turn him over a couple of times. And so, yeah, Myles Garrett looks like he's going to break the sack record for the season. Carson Schwarzenegger looks like a man on fire this year, like all pro.
He's going to be all pro. Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy.
If you have rookie cards of him, I would hold on to those. That defense is just swarming and looking really, really good. Mason Graham also is looking really good. He's not showing up on the stat sheet, but the tape
defensive
really
tackles
speaks
don't.
to him. Yeah. That whole defense, big fan of them. Another hunk that I have is Sean Tucker, running back for the Bucks. There was really a lot of uncertainty of what was going to happen when Bucky Irvin went down. People thought it was going to be Rachaad White. He looked good for a game or two, and then there was really nothing for a bit. And then Sean Tucker got more and more chances and just made the most out of it this past week. Really exploded for, I think, the second highest fantasy points out of week 11. The only person that scored more than him, I think, was Christian McCaffrey. So really good.
36 points last week. Really crazy. So.
Yeah, insane. And then last but not least, Travion Henderson, player that has just been waiting around in the wings of Ramondre Stevenson for his opportunity and has had it the last 2 weeks and has taken full advantage of it. He's somebody that I expect to demand the ball more down the stretch, and somebody that's going to be very efficient with his carries and his touches in the passing game, and is just going to continue to be that RB1 moving forward, I think. So those are my 3 hunks this week.
There you go. Yeah. All right. I will go into my last week hunks. I had Rashee Rice, 6 catches on 9 targets for 38 yards. Obviously he had, the catches there, plenty of targets, but not productive in yards. 9.8 fantasy points, not really that great of a hunk. And then Devin Achane, 21 carries, 120 yards, 5 catches for 45 yards, 22.5 fantasy points. Definitely a hunk last week for sure. My first hunk for this week is going to be Trey McBride versus the Jaguars, projected 18.92 fantasy points. Last week versus the 49ers, he had 10 catches out of 11 targets for 115 yards and a touchdown. He's the current tight end 1 in all of fantasy football, and that's not very surprising at all. Since week 6, he's had 42 catches for 443 yards and 6 touchdowns, 124.3 fantasy points in his last 5 games played. Absolutely insane. The best thing that has happened for the Cardinals offense is Jacoby Brissett taking over quarterback duties from Kyler Murray. Jacoby, believe it or not, has been a top 5 QB since he took over. Normally, Trey McBride would, be sharing snaps and competing for catches with Marvin Harrison Jr. Even when he does, it doesn't matter. But Marvin has had his appendix surgery or removed, or the issue there before last week's game, and he's reported that he's going to miss this week as well. And the Cardinals are playing the Jaguars. The Jaguars are the 26th worst passing defense in the NFL right now, and they also have the 3rd worst in the NFL against the tight end. They've allowed 64 catches for 694 yards and 7 touchdowns, 110 fantasy points this season. Did I mention Trey McBride had more fantasy points in the last 5 games? So he's going to absolutely dominate this week. He's going to be a menace. He's definitely a week 12 hunk for me. So
love it. He's a stud.
Yeah. And then I only have 2. So my second one is actually Travion Henderson as well. David's hunk as well, versus the Bengals, projected 16.19 fantasy points. Last week versus the Jets, absolutely, he killed it. Actually dominated for my guillotine league. I'm so grateful. Carried the ball 19 times for 62 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 catches, 31 yards, and another touchdown out of the air, 32.3 fantasy points. In the last 4 weeks since taking over the backfield, Henderson has ran the ball 57 times for 339 yards, 4 touchdowns, 10 catches, 66 yards, and a receiving touchdown, 82 fantasy points. Absolutely incredible. The last 2 weeks in general, 33 rushes for 290 yards and 4 touchdowns, 6 catches, and 34 yards and another touchdown. So in 2 games, he's had 5 touchdowns, 64 points in 2 games. In the last 2 weeks, this week the Patriots, they play the Bengals. The Bengals have the worst rushing defense in the NFL, allowing 160.9 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. I don't need to say more right now. Travion Henderson, he seems to finally take control of the backfield, and I predicted that he'll continue the dominance this week versus the Bengals' terrible defense. So that's why he's my week 12 second hunk.
I like those hunks. They're good. All right, so our skunks for this upcoming week. So last week I had Tyrone Tracy and Jalen Warren as my two skunks, and I feel like those were very adequate and just mediocre players. So I think that held up this week as well. The skunks that I have this week, the Browns offense. Holy cow.
We're going with the Browns whole team theme this time.
The entire offense of the Browns. Like at this point, you can't even play Quinshon Judkins because all that the team defense does is just zone in on the run and then just blitz.
Yeah.
So it's like he's not even viable as a starter anymore in this offense. And so maybe you can sneak in one of those tight ends, Harold Fannin or David Njoku, but they're just so touchdown dependent for fantasy that it's just become stay away at all costs. And it pains me to say it, but at this point, there's no sense of playing anybody. Yeah, that's my first skunk. The second skunk is Nick Chubb. He is somebody who really just, is devastated from his knee injury he had, and is just not the same player he once was. They're really trying to find that youth movement down in Houston right now and trying to see what they've got moving forward. And looks like Nick Chubb is not a part of those plans. His touches has continued to go down, and his efficiency has continued to be at the worst that it's ever been. And so at this point, there's really no sense of holding on to him at all in any leagues. You can just drop him and move on from him. But yeah, it makes me sad to say it because he was my darling boy. But Nick Chubb,
my darling
no longer relevant in fantasy football.
Yeah, it's sad. And I mean, as Browns fans too, it just hits home a little more. So
yeah.
All right, my last week's skunks, I had Rachaad White, 10 rushes, 51 yards, 2 catches for 11 yards, 8.2 fantasy points, 27th ranked running back. He's garbage. You can drop him. Sean Tucker looks to take over. Then Bucky Irving's going to take a spot back as soon as he gets back and healthy. So, and then also my second one was T.J. Hawkinson, 3 catches for 39 yards, 6.9 fantasy points, 23rd ranked tight end. He's a nobody. J.J. McCarthy sucks, and it's he's just a shell of his former self right now. So.
Yeah.
This week's skunks, my first one is Ashton Jeanty, projected 14.43 fantasy points versus the Browns defense. Last week versus the Cowboys, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. 6 rushes for 7 yards, 6 catches for 27 yards. That's bad. That's not. You can't play him. You can't play him. This week, the Raiders play the Browns. The Browns have the second best defense in the NFL. They allow an average of only 106.4 rushing yards per game and only 5 rushing touchdowns the entire season. It's very unfortunate that the Browns' offense is so bad because their defense is actually Super Bowl caliber. It's embarrassing, especially being a Browns fan. That being said, I think it's going to be a very rough day for the Raiders' offense, and that includes Ashton Jeanty. As David said, one of his hunks is going to be the Browns defense. It's for sure they're going to be incredible. The Raiders offense has no identity, but I know one thing. Last week, Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly ran Jeanty only 6 times last week against the Cowboys, and their defense is ranked 30th in the NFL. Myles Garrett and company should be licking their chops right now. They may have 10 sacks collectively as a team at the end of the day. So, yeah, Jeanty is definitely for sure my first skunk for week 12.
Yeah, that's a good pick, and really unfortunate because the talent I think is there. The offensive line is just not.
You just are mad because you drafted him first over on Dynasty, and he's not.
I did, and I still think he's got the talent. I just think he literally gets hit 2 yards in the backfield every time he touches the ball. And it sucks.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, it sucks. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Hopefully, they'll fortify that offensive line in the upcoming drafts and offseason. So, all right, going into my second week 12 skunk, Wan'Dale Robinson. Projected 13.12 fantasy points versus the Lions this week. Last week versus the Packers, 4 catches on 9 targets for 36 yards, only 7 fantasy points. Jameis Winston is in because Jackson Dart is in concussion protocol. We're unsure if Jackson Dart's going to play. He is limited right now in practice, but if not, Jameis is going to play. Regardless, Wan'Dale's been pretty underwhelming this season. He's currently ranked as the 23rd overall receiver. His last 5 games, he's had 47 targets and only caught 28 of them for 287 yards and no touchdowns. Only 56 fantasy points in the last 5 games. TreVeyon Henderson has had more fantasy points in the last 2 weeks compared to Wan'Dale's last 5 weeks. The Giants have a problem this week in the fact that they have played the Lions. The Detroit Lions are ranked 5th in the NFL after 11 weeks. Really, really, really good defense. Most of the identity left in this team, when Malik Neighbors went down. Then their second identity left with Cam Scadaboo. Now even Jackson Dart's out. Unfortunately, without Jackson Dart, even with him, I don't know, especially without him, Wan'Dale is not a great viable starting option for fantasy football. Wan'Dale and the rest of the Giants team is going to struggle against a really good Lions team this week. That's why Wan'Dale Robinson is my second skunk for week 12.
Yeah, it's a good pick, and it really sucks because you thought that he was going to emerge as that weapon moving forward for that offense, and just hasn't.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but I mean, it happens. Injuries suck, but that's part of the game. Especially this year, the injuries are really, really bad. It's unprecedented. So
yeah, true.
All right, we're going to our next segment, fantasy fireworks. Basically, this is a matchup this week that we both will pick that we think will produce a ton of fantasy points. So, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Sure, just don't pick mine, okay? So last week we both picked Seattle and the Rams as our fantasy fireworks matchup. Worked out pretty well. The game was close, 21-19, I believe, if I remember correctly. So close game. The quarterbacks did not do really well, but some of the other players did. So just depends on who you had in that game. This week I have the matchup that I think is going to be the best matchup out of all the teams, maybe even out of the whole season. It is the Philadelphia Eagles going to Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles offense seems to be hitting their stride moving forward now. I think that the Saquon game is going to be amazing. We just saw the Dallas defense try and stop Ashton Jeanty and do a good job, but I think that Philadelphia offensive line is going to do a really good job of creating space and opportunities for Saquon to get open and run really, really far. And I think Philadelphia always plays well in Dallas too. And so I think that should be a good matchup for them. And then Dallas's offense is always just, they're explosive. They've been really scoring the ball a lot lately. And I think that beat up secondary within Philly should create some opportunities for CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens to get open and find space and score. So really excited about that matchup. I think it could be explosive and create a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, good one. I won't go over last week's. Like David said, we both had the Seahawks and Rams. He really pretty much covered it. So I'll go into this week's for my fantasy fireworks. It's going to be the Colts versus the Chiefs. I really like this matchup. I love this Colts team right now. 8-2, best total offense in the NFL right now. Complementing with the third best passing and third best rushing offense in the NFL. Just a really, really solid team. Like David said, Jonathan Taylor is probably going to run away with the MVP. I can't say enough about them. I love Tyler Warren. Michael Pittman Jr. looks fantastic. Daniel Jones, 8th overall quarterback. Jonathan Taylor, second overall running back. Pittman, 11th receiver. Tyler Warren, 4th tight end. Like, there's not a hole on this offense. Their defense is, relatively okay. They have a really good rushing defense. They're lacking in passing defense. That's where the Chiefs can take a hold, I think. Chiefs have a really good, solid team overall. 7th best offense, 7th best defense. Obviously, Mahomes is, the 3rd overall quarterback right now. Their running game is questionable, but, they're mixing it up with 3 different running backs. So, obviously, those numbers are going to be deflated a bit. Rashee Rice looks incredible coming back. Last week he didn't do too great, but, we'll give him a game. And then Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends still in the NFL at like 33 years old or something like that. So,
sure it's 50, but okay.
Yeah, whatever. Nonetheless, this is going to be a really fun game. It should be a lot of fireworks going off for Colts versus Chiefs definitely this week. So,
yeah, I like it. It's a good pick. So we'll have to see which one does better.
Yeah.
All right, long shot lineup time.
Let's do it.
All right. So last week for the long shot lineup, I had the lineup of Joe Flacco.
Real quick. The long shot lineup for those who are new. This is just these aren't guys who we pick who are the best in each position, but we think that they'll score a lot of points this week. So we do a quarterback, a running back, 2 receivers, a tight end, and a flex. We try to put a whole team up together just to give you some fun insight, I guess. So go ahead.
Yeah. So last week I had Joe Flacco as my quarterback, who really did not do very well fantasy-wise, turned the ball over. Not great. Blake Corum had my running back there. I'm pretty sure that was also a dud, so not great for the long shot lineup. And then I had Trey Tucker, wide receiver, and also another just flat-out failure.
Is this your skunk list?
I think this is actually. Then my next wide receiver I had was Romeo Doubs. I didn't even look at what his stats were last week, so let me pull those up real fast. He had 4 catches for 53 yards, so not great, Bob. And then I had Kyle Pitts, who actually did okay for a tight end. I'm curious to see how he will do moving forward now that Penix is no longer there.
Right.
But yeah, Kyle Pitts had 2 catches for 14 yards. So actually he did really bad.
Really good for a tight end on David's pick.
My best pick of the entire long shot lineup was none other than the wide receiver 1 for the Arizona Cardinals, Michael Wilson. He actually did great last week. He had 15 catches for 185 yards.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Crazy good. So, yeah, 26 points fantasy. If he catches a touchdown, like that's even more points. So, yeah, really excited to see how Michael Wilson does this week, if he can repeat off of that going up against Jacksonville. But let me see him stack it, and then I'll be a believer.
There you go. I'll go over my last week's launch shot lineup real quick. My quarterback was Dak Prescott, 24.32 fantasy points. That was a hit. Quinshon Judkins, my running back, he did not do well. 17 rushes for 59 yards, only 6 fantasy points. My first receiver was Deebo Samuel. He had 20.7 fantasy points. My second receiver was Stephon Diggs. He had 20.5 fantasy points. My tight end was Cade Otton. That was a dud. 2 catches for 28 yards. And then my flex was Jalen Waddle. He had 3 catches for 52 yards, so not that great either. So 2 or 3 hits, 2 or 3 misses there. So if you would have had that lineup, you would have had 84.42 fantasy points. Not too bad. So.
Yeah, not bad.
All right, go into your quarterback for this week's long shot lineup.
Yeah, my quarterback that I have this week is Shedeur Sanders.
You fool.
We are full. Oh no, I mean, look, we gotta can't tamper expectations, but I do think Shedeur Sanders could light it up next week. The Raiders defense is atrocious, giving up like the most points to fantasy quarterbacks the entire season. I think that Shedeur could step in and do decently well for fantasy football. I expect him to throw a couple of touchdown passes. I expect him to hit some deep plays that are exciting and keeps the fans in it and makes people excited. I still expect a turnover, maybe 2, and still expect him to take some sacks, but I do think that he will do really well next week. So I'm excited to say that he is my long shot lineup quarterback moving into next week.
I would have laughed so hard. I could not disagree more.
I gotta believe, all right?
Could not disagree more. I mean, our offensive line is 32nd ranked in the NFL, the worst ranked, and there's a guy on the other side named Max Crosby who's going to wreak havoc. One bad thing, with Shedeur Sanders is that, it's since college days, whenever he's in trouble, he's going to run backwards. This dude's going to get sacked 2 or 3 times from minus 20 yards. It's not going to be fun. I don't know. This Browns team sucks. I of course I want Shedeur to win and play well, and I want him to play just to see what we got. But if there's any indication of what will happen last week against Max Crosby, he's gonna have a long day for sure. So we'll see. Hopefully he throws a couple touchdowns to some receivers who learn how to catch randomly all of a sudden. But we'll find out.
We'll find out. We'll see what the rest of my list looks like.
Oh God. Oh no, David's on a Browns theme, guys. All right. My quarterback for this week's long shot lineup. Once again, if you're just joining us, the long shot lineup are players that aren't necessarily the best guys, aren't necessarily sleepers, but are guys who we think will do well this week. So, my quarterback is Jacoby Brissett, projected 17.91 fantasy points versus the Jaguars. Let me put this in perspective for you, okay? It's true that Jacoby Brissett is currently ranked as the 28th overall quarterback in sleeper. That is true. But those numbers are definitely, need an asterisk behind them for sure. He's played the last 5 games for the Cardinals. In those 5 games, he's been absolutely incredible. Very, very good. 142 for 213, 1,570 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 21 rushes for 80 yards, and 1 touchdown on the ground, 109.8 fantasy points in 5 games. His fantasy points have been versus the Colts, 22.7, versus the Packers, 20.2, versus the Cowboys, 25.3, versus the Seahawks, 19.4, versus the 49ers last week, 24.38. That's incredible. That's great numbers for a quarterback. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's a brutal stretch of games. And the Colts, great defense. Packers, good defense. Seahawks, 49ers, both okay defenses. Seahawks are really good. Only bad defense there is Cowboys. But Jacoby's been electric in all of them. This week they play the Jaguars. As I said earlier with Trey McBride, the Jaguars' passing defense is bad. They rank 26th in the NFL. I'm starting Jacoby Brissett until further notice. I love the fantasy points he's putting up the last 5 weeks. I mean, looks like he might be another bridge quarterback that might earn another contract here, which is crazy to say that so many of these guys are doing this nowadays. But, that's the way the NFL is working, and I couldn't be happier for him. So Jacoby Brissett, he is my Week 12 legacy lineup quarterback. So
I like it. It's a good pick. My long shot lineup quarterback or running back this week is none other than Sean Tucker. We talked about him a little bit earlier, but this dude has just been electric when he gets the ball in his hands. Exploded for 30 some odd fantasy points this last week. And even though there's rumors that Bucky Irving might come back, I'm still a believer in Sean Tucker. I think that he has done enough to carve himself out a role in this offense, even if Bucky Irving comes back. I still expect that Bucky Irving will play this week, but I think he'll be on a snap count and kind of ease back into his workload. So therefore, I think Sean Tucker is going to still be fantasy relevant and still be somebody that will score a lot of points and probably score some touchdowns this week. So, yeah, I expect him to do well, and I would definitely start him if you have him in your league.
All right. We'll see how that comes to fruition. I also disagree on that. So we'll see. Real quick in the comments, Anime Queen said, hi, hope you had a good day. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you have a good day too.
Running back for my long shot lineup, Travis Etienne. I know David said he was limited in practice because of injury, but he's looking towards playing, so I'm going to say he's going to play. Projected 13.10 fantasy points versus the Cardinals. Last week versus the Chargers, he ran the ball 19 times for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns, had 20 fantasy points. The last 3 weeks he's played well and saw a significant increase of runs, which I really, really like. He's ran the ball 57 times in the last 3 weeks for 215 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also had 7 catches for 50 yards, 51 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. He's looked really good when given the opportunities. And fortunately for him, the Jaguars offense, have been riddled with injuries right now. Brian Thomas Jr. has been in and out. Travis Hunter's on IR. Brenton Strange has been out. He's also on the 21-day window to come back. Look for him to come back eventually soon. They've all missed significant time, and that's helped Travis Etienne. This week, the Jaguars played the Cardinals. The Cardinals ranked 20th in total defense, allowing an average of 112.2 rushing yards per game, also 11 total rushing touchdowns. As I said, the Jaguars don't have a ton of reliable options on their team right now. Travis Etienne should continue to benefit from that. That's why he's my Week 12 long shot lineup running back. So I'm going to go into my wide receiver real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
My first wide receiver for the long shot lineup Week 12, T. Higgins. T. Higgins projected 16.48 fantasy points this week versus the Patriots. Last week versus Steelers, 3 catches on 8 targets, 63 yards and a touchdown. Usually I would not pick a wide receiver 2 that's behind one of the best wide receivers in Jamar Chase, obviously, but Jamar, can't keep his saliva in his mouth and got suspended for a game for spitting on Jalen Ramsey, which is absolutely disgusting, by the way.
Yes.
The instant hands if you ever spit on me. Anybody, ridiculous. Nonetheless, that's great news for T. Higgins, though, and owners that have him, who are going in late for the playoff push. T. Higgins is the 22nd ranked receiver in the NFL right now, despite playing for one of the worst teams and behind one of the best players in his position. This week, the Bengals play the Patriots. The New England Patriots ranked 17th in passing defense all year, allowing an average of 215.9 yards per game. Did I mention that T. Higgins had 6 touchdowns in the last 6 games, even, with Jamar Chase in the game? Like I said, I normally wouldn't put up a guy like T. Higgins in the long shot lineup, but for this week, as the team's wide receiver 1, it just makes a lot of sense. So that's why he is my first wide receiver in the long shot lineup for Week 12.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good pick. Opportunity is for sure going to be there. Yeah. My first wide receiver that I have for
your running back?
I did, yeah. I did Sean Tucker.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good. My first wide receiver that I have for the long shot lineup is none other than Michael Wilson. You talked about Jacoby Brissett being a stud this week, and I still think because Marvin Harrison Jr. is out, Michael Wilson's still going to dominate. The team's probably going to be trailing for most of this game anyway, and so I still expect a lot of passes to come Michael Wilson's way, and I look for him to maybe not put up the same type of numbers that he had this last week, but I still expect him to do really well, get a lot of targets and a lot of yards, and hopefully a touchdown. So I like Michael Wilson moving forward. My second wide receiver is none other than Cedric Tillman, the touchdown.
We're loving the Browns
wide receiver. Look, Shedeur Sanders, if he's going to do well, he's going to have to be able to get some of these wide receivers going, and I think Cedric Tillman's going to be his best weapon. He's a big body wide receiver. He's somebody that we've seen be able to vertically stretch the field, and so I think if Shedeur is wanting to throw to somebody like that, Cedric Tillman's going to be his guy. He has the ability to catch contested catches on the dig routes, on the in routes, and he also has the ability to break free down the field, and I think Shedeur will take advantage of that when he gets available too. So I expect some big plays to be made, maybe not have a ton of targets, but I still expect Cedric Tillman to make the most of what he's got. So
yeah. Somebody just commented, his name is
Bacon
Redinacho. He said, "I'm in a bacon dream. This is not real." I don't know what that means, man, but I appreciate you watching, brother.
I don't know either.
Okay.
This is like the 6'7" thing that I still don't know what that means.
Chubby bacon. All right. Well, welcome, brother. My second receiver for the long shot lineup, Rome Odunze. For the Bears, projected 11.96 fantasy points versus the Steelers. Rome has been, hit and miss this season. If I'm being honest, he was, soaring really early in the season. Wide receiver 1 for the first few weeks, and then has fallen back to earth as of recently. That being said, I really like this matchup this week. The Bears play the Steelers, and guess what, Dave? The Steelers have the worst passing defense in the NFL. They allow 261.7 passing yards per game, 16 total passing touchdowns. I think that will bode well for Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams. The targets are there for Rome. He has 75 catches for 600 yards, 8 touchdowns on the season, which makes him an absolute, the absolute target with the Bears offense. DJ Moore completely fell to the side there. I think the Bears pass game is going to be on point this week. That's why Rome Odunze is my second receiver for week 12.
Yeah, I like that. Rome Odunze is one of my studs I like too.
Yeah.
What's your second wide receiver?
I did Odunze, and then I did T. Higgins. I'll go into my tight end real quick, just to keep it going, and then you can do your receiver and tight end. My tight end is George Kittle, projected 15.32 fantasy points versus the Panthers this week. Last 2 weeks, George Kittle finally looks like he's finally back to form. 15 catches on 15 targets, 151 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty much darn near perfect. I think it's finally time to flip the switch. George Kittle is officially back. He's currently ranked as the 20th overall tight end, but that's because he missed, obviously, 6 games due to injury. One can speculate that if he had to play those games, he'd be in contention with tight end 1 with Trey McBride. This week, the 49ers play the Panthers. The Panthers are ranked 5th from last against tight ends this season, allowing 58 catches for 718 yards and 5 touchdowns. Over 100 fantasy points allowed all to tight ends. I expect Kittle to dominate this week against, a middle-of-the-pack passing defense and a bottom-5 pass defense against the tight end, and I think George Kittle's a lock here, but he's going to definitely my week 12 long shot lineup tight end.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, especially because Brock Purdy is back and healthy again. I think that's a huge reason why George Kittle's doing well. All right, my tight end that I've got is Harold Fannin Jr. For the Cleveland Browns. I told you the long shot was the Browns lineup. Look, the Harold Fannin, we saw him make a big play at the end of the game last week. He looks comfortable with Shedeur throwing him the ball. I think that he could do really well. David Njoku's beat up a little bit, practice limited this week. I think Harold Fannin could step in and get a lot of targets and demand a lot of screens and a lot of check down passes. And I think that Shedeur will be kind of that check down safety valve, or Harold Fannin will be that safety valve for Shedeur. So I expect him to do well. He's already proven that he's a stud. So I think this week could be a good week for him. And then my flex that I have is Kenneth Gainwell, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is actually probably my best pick for the long shot lineup, if I'm being honest.
We'll see.
He is going to be the running back 1 this week because Jaylen Warren is injured and questionable
for his team, not in the NFL.
Oh, yes, for my long shot lineup team, not in the NFL. Sorry. Yes, Kenneth Gainwell. He looked productive last week. Scored, I think, 2 touchdowns. Didn't have that many carries, but still looked efficient. With Aaron Rodgers dealing with a wrist injury as well, I expect the Steelers to really be the ground and pound player type game for them. And I expect like Kenneth Gainwell to be the main focus point of that. So. Especially if Jaylen Warren's out, Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the guy that benefits the most from this team. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Good flex. We'll see if it happens. Finally, my flex for the long shot lineup, Tet McMillan. For the Panthers, projected 15.11 fantasy points versus the 49ers. I love good God, I love Tet McMillan. I love him. He's teetering on joining my fantasy Pookie list. I love him that much. Last week versus the Falcons, 8 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Freaking finally, he put it all together. All season, I've been saying that Tet's a complete wide receiver, but unfortunately for fantasy owners, he would either get a ton of yards but no touchdowns, or a few yards and a couple touchdowns. There was no in between. Last week, he finally put it all together. 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dude was a beast. I mean, I'm so excited. Did I mention, he's 6'5", he's a rookie receiver, and he's a legitimate chance of making the Pro Bowl this year. He's currently a top 10 receiver. Like, dude's awesome. I love him.
Stud. He's a stud.
This week the Panthers play the 49ers. That's really good news for Tet and the Panthers passing offense in general. The 49ers are ranked 28th in the NFL after 11 weeks of pass offense. The loss of Fred Warner seems to definitely hurt that defense immensely. Give me Tet McMillan to continue to put it all together this week against a bad passing defense. He's definitely a great flex for my Week 12 long shot lineup. Love Tet McMillan.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. That's good. Oh, man. All right, well, we'll see whose long shot lineup is better next week. So
definitely going to be mine. David picked all the Browns players.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm feeling lucky, so we'll see.
All right.
Don't let me down, Shedeur, please.
It's more like the offensive line than Shedeur. But.
Honestly, yeah. So. All right, so let's jump in then to the legacy lineup. This is a lineup that we do every week. We just pick one position from each player to kind of help you strategize for your daily fantasy sports.
I'm out real quick. I'm sorry. Breaking news: the Bills have decided to make Keon Coleman a healthy scratch again, 2 weeks in a row.
Wow!
So for Thursday Night Football, he will not be playing.
Drama.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That just popped up, so that's pretty cool. So
that's not cool, but important.
I don't have them. I don't mind bother me any.
Yeah. All right, Khalil Shakur. Here we go. The legacy lineup. It's a daily fantasy sports suggestions. This is not financial advice, so don't take anything too seriously.
Just for fun.
We'd like to have fun. We pick one position from each, or one player from each position, and then we see how they do. Help you win. So last week I picked Justin Herbert, R.J. Harvey, Ladd McConkey, and Trey McBride. I only really did well with one of those picks, and that was Trey McBride, 10 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. The other players I picked were complete doo-doo. Justin Herbert, 10 of 18, 0 touchdowns and a pick.
What was up with that, man? That was one of the worst games I've ever seen Justin Herbert.
It was ridiculous. Like, I don't know. Did they forget how to play football for a week? I don't know. It was awful.
They're on bye. They hopefully can figure it out.
Please. Ladd McConkey had 3 catches for 13 yards, so practically a goose egg. And then R.J. Harvey, who should have stepped into the running back 1 role now that J.K. Dobbins is hurt, had 11 carries for 30 yards. Like, what are we doing, man? Come on.
Yeah, Jaleel McLaughlin had a handful of carries there, too. So
disappointed all around in my DFS picks and legacy lineup from last week.
There you go. My last week, I think I did okay, actually. I picked Drake May as my quarterback, 25 of 34, 281 yards and a touchdown, 15.4 fantasy points. Not the best, but okay. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, 13 rushes, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown, 35.10 fantasy points. That was a smash.
Oh, yeah.
Nico Collins, I predicted to have a good game following his concussion. 9 catches, 92 yards and a touchdown, 24.2 fantasy points. Again, that was a great pick. Then I picked Brock Bowers because I knew David would want to pick him 2 weeks in a row. 7 catches, 72 yards, 14.2 fantasy points. Not bad for a tight end. So
yeah, man. Yeah. All around better than mine. So
for sure.
Barely, but
definitely.
All right, so this week I've got some fun players to pick. My quarterback, I've got Sam Darnold going up against the Tennessee Titans, That defense is putrid for the Titans. I expect the offense to start looking a little bit better. They're trying to get Cam Ward looking more comfortable. So I expect this game to be closer than people think, but I still expect Sam Darnold and that Seattle offense to just completely dominate. I expect him to throw for multiple touchdowns, a lot of yards, not turn the ball over because it's the Titans. And so I expect Sam Darnold to do really, really well and could put up QB1 numbers again. So I like that pick this week.
There you go. Sam Darnold for David's legacy lineup. All right, my Week 12 legacy lineup quarterback is Matthew Stafford versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, predicted 18.95 fantasy points. He's secretly had a killer season, especially for being 37 years old. Currently ranked as the 6th overall quarterback after 11 weeks. That's great. You know, I don't think you understand. He's already he's got 27 passing touchdowns already this season. Wow. I mean, that's already 5th most in a season in his career, and the season's only a little over half over right now. Did I mention only 2 interceptions to go along with those 27 pass touchdowns in 2025? Like 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions after 11 weeks. Absolutely incredible.
Levels off the chart.
Amazing. This week the Rams play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have the 27th ranked passing defense. There's a ton of opportunity for him to dominate the game with his 2 top 10 receivers. Puka Nacua still ranked as the 4th overall receiver, and he missed 5 games. That's insane. Like, his numbers at the beginning of the year were unreal, and that's a testament to just how good he is and will be continuing. I think Matthew Stafford is going to have a great week this week, so he's my legacy lineup quarterback for Week 12.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good pick. All right, my running back that I've got should be none other than Jonathan Taylor, the running back one for football. He is just somebody who's just been on a tear and coming off of his bye week. He's got a little bit healthier, got a little bit looser. I'm just going to look to hit the ground running, literally, and through the Kansas City defense. I think that defense, while it's good, is still very weary to the run game, and I think that is good for Jonathan Taylor. I think that this week it's a big matchup because Kansas City is going to be trying to fight for a playoff spot and trying to stay in the hunt. Yeah. But this could be a good game for the Colts to be like, no, you're not going to make the playoffs, and try and push them out of it. So I expect Jonathan Taylor to be the main focus point for the Colts this week. I expect him to get a lot of touches, not only in the running game, but also get a couple of check down passes and a couple of screens, and I expect him to just dominate all around. So yeah.
I think the Colts in general probably are my favorite team to watch it for fantasy football purposes right now. I really love that team. I don't know. Yeah. My running back for the legacy lineup is none other than Bijan Robinson, projected 21.24 fantasy points versus the Saints. Bijan has been Bijan all season. He's been exactly who fantasy owners were hoping to get when they drafted him really high in the draft. He's lived up to, it's really hard usually when you draft someone high in the draft because usually, the only way they go is down because it's hard to, keep up. Bijan has kept up the entire season. Currently ranked 4th in all running backs. Has ran the ball 158 times for 783 yards, 4 touchdowns, 47 catches for 506 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. 210 fantasy points. I mean, he's amazing. Him and Christian McCaffrey both are amazing through the air. It's crazy how good these running backs are. But Bijan will continue to be Bijan this week also against the Saints, especially since the Falcons starting quarterback, David mentioned earlier, Micah Penix is out for the next 9 months at least with the ACL injury. Kirk Cousins being a shell of him for himself. And Drake London is also out with a knee injury. Bijan is going to get the ball early and often. That's bad news for the Saints' 21st ranked rush defense. It's a no-brainer. He's definitely my Week 12 legacy lineup running back.
Yeah, it's a good pick. The only thing that would concern me a little bit is if Tyler Algier gets some of those goal line carries. But
you talk about Tyler Algier every week, and he just – I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. Bijan is Bijan, as I said. Every week, David tells me, oh, this is the week. Algier. Algier just needs to get on another team. He's the Ben Tate. He's the Ben Tate of the Falcons. So, all right, my first receiver. I
thought we were only doing one.
My first and only receiver for the legacy lineup is none other than George Pickens, projected 15.24 fantasy points over the Eagles. The best thing that ever happened to George Pickens was him getting traded to the Cowboys. Let's be real.
Oh, yeah.
He's the wide receiver 4 after, playing behind CeeDee Lamb for 6 of the 11 games so far. He's been an absolute monster this season. 58 catches for 908 yards, and 7 touchdowns, almost 200 fantasy points already. This week, the Cowboys played the Eagles, as David alluded to earlier. They are ranked 15th in the NFL in passing defense, allowing 212 yards per game and 9 passing touchdowns this season. Honestly, who do the Eagles designate as the primary target for the Cowboys passing offense? Logically, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. They're going to guard CeeDee with their best guys. So I think that George Pickens benefits from that this week. And I think he's going to continue to benefit from that. Last week versus the Raiders, Pickens had 9 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. I expect them to continue that dominance. Give me George Pickens over CeeDee Lamb. I'm gonna call my shot here for the legacy lineup, wide receiver week 12.
I like it. That's a bold take. I like it, though. He looked good last week, looked explosive.
Really good.
Yeah, I think he should do it really well. My wide receiver that I have this week is Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is just somebody who I think is going to tear up that Tennessee Titans defense. Same reason why I picked Sam Darnold, because this offense is just humming on all cylinders. They look explosive. Jackson Smith-Njigba just is going to be a beast, as he's always been all season, and I expect that to continue. Really not much more I need to say.
No, he's been so good. So
yeah. And then my tight end that I have this week is somebody who's kind of been on a little bit of a lull, maybe is a good way of putting it, but I think should bounce back this week, and that would be Hunter Henry, tight end for the New England Patriots. They're going up against the Cincinnati Bengals defense, which is like the worst defense in all of the NFL. Especially for a offense that really focuses on the tight end like Hunter Henry. I think that he could do a really good job and do fantastic this week. I expect him to catch multiple touchdown passes. I expect him to get a lot of targets and a lot of looks. It's helped that Stephon Diggs, I think, has emerged as a viable weapon on the outside, and so their secondary is going to focus on that and leave Hunter Henry running down the middle of the field. So I'm expecting some big things from Hunter Henry for a good bounce-back game this week.
Yeah, going off of that, too, the Bengals are actually the worst in the NFL right now against the tight end as well. 66 catches for 808 yards and 12 touchdowns. 153 points, fantasy points to tight ends this year, compared to second worst is 116 fantasy points. So that's a huge, huge difference there. So That's a great pick for me, David.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know if I would put it in the legacy lineup. That's a great pick. My legacy lineup tight end is none other than Travis Kelce, projected 12.38 fantasy points versus the Colts this week. The 36-year-old tight end has had a great season thus far, ranking 3rd overall in fantasy as a tight end. 50 catches, 631 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's secretly been a menace. Last week versus the Broncos, 9 catches, 91 yards, a touchdown, 24 fantasy points. This week, we've talked about it 50 times because we love this game, but the Chiefs versus the Colts. Fortunately for the Chiefs, the Colts defense has struggled against tight ends this season. 63 catches, 726 yards, and 5 touchdowns, 103 fantasy points against all tight ends. I love this Colts team, but I think that Travis Kelce is a mismatch against their defense, and it should be exploited this week. So he is my Week 12 legacy lineup tight end.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I like it. All right. We got one more segment to get through.
This one is called Sleepers and Creepers.
Sleepers and Creepers. All right, so last week, for my sleepers that I had Sean Tucker as a sleeper. I think that worked out pretty well. Parker Washington did not work out very well. I think he only had 1 catch last week. And Jerry Jeudy, who also did not work out very well. Maybe I'm just a dumb Browns fan at this point.
You are a dumb Browns fan.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Any Browns fan that's done, though, so including myself.
Yeah, that's true. So this week, speaking of Browns fans, one of the sleepers that I have is Shedeur Sanders. At this point, I think you just got to take a chance on him and go pick him up in your league. I don't know if you necessarily need to start him, but go pick him up, see what happens. He's going to be available on the waiver wire, and you might as well just get ahead of it in case he does explode and do really well. Is it likely? Probably not, but just go get him, see what happens, and thank me later.
He's only 7% rostered now on Sleeper, so your league definitely has him open if you want to pick him up.
Yes, go pick him up. Another person that I have on the sleepers is Michael Wilson. Talked about him earlier as well, but wide receiver who just exploded with Jacoby Brissett last week. I expect him to continue getting all those targets and demand the shares. And I know he's been a big target on the waiver wire this week. I think he had over 1 million ads, but still somebody that you should go target if he's available in your league.
There you go. All right, my last week's sleepers, I had Tyler Lockett. He's currently with the Raiders. 3 catches, 33 yards. We'll see. He's still leading the team in targets after the three games he's been there, so that's something to watch. And then my second sleeper was A.D. Mitchell for the Jets now. 1 catch on 6 targets, 10 yards. Did not do great last week, but the 6 targets, he led the team in targets in his first real game playing. I don't believe in the player too much, but obviously I believe in the volume, so it could be a stash side for sure. Going into week 12 sleepers, my first one is Tyrell Shavers. He is the wide receiver from the Bills, on 25% in sleeper right now. Most of you have not heard about this dude. He's been on the Bills since 2023, but hasn't recorded a catch until this year. The Bills do not have a wide receiver 1. I just mentioned, it was just breaking news that Keon Coleman is going to be healthy, scratched again, and sit again for a consecutive week. They drafted Keon Coleman to be that guy, but now he finds himself, healthy scratch. You can't really do anything, especially when with the team that desperately needs wide receiver help. Then in comes the 6'4", 211 pound wide receiver Tyrell Shavers. I'm sorry.
I like the 211 pound. That's nice.
200 love, yeah. Just a couple of extra love handles. Last week, while Coleman was watching from the bench, Shavers had 4 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. I'm not saying that he's going to magically become the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen, but I am saying that the opportunities are endless, not only for Shavers on the field, but, he's produced last week. And for him being only owned 25% in leagues right now, he could become a great asset for, the end of the playoff push, if we will. So a name to watch. He's a sleeper for week 12.
Yeah.
My second sleeper, Greg Dortch, receiver for the Cardinals. David talked about Michael Wilson. I'm betting on maybe that'll get passed around a little bit more. And, last week is an anomaly. Projected 6.85 points versus the Jaguars, only own 37% of leagues right now. I don't have a ton of hope for him in the long run of the season, especially when Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back from his appendicitis. He will obviously be the wide receiver 1, and Michael Wilson looked good last week, so he'll probably be the wide receiver 2. But Dortch did okay last week versus the 49ers, 6 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown, 18.6 fantasy points. So it was a good 1-2 punch there with him and Wilson. Until Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back, I expect Dortch to continue to step up modestly in this place. So, at 37% owned right now, he's definitely a guy to look for, maybe for just more receptions. 6 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. That's definitely serviceable. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's a good pick. The one honorable mention, I just thought of this off the top of my head, but Darnell Mooney, because Drake London's going to be out for a week, might be somebody worth watching.
He's dead to me. I said it last week after the week before I picked him. Darnell Mooney is dead to me. Don't pick Darnell Mooney. I don't care if every other receiver on that team misses a hand. Darnell Mooney is going to miss 2 of them. I don't know. He's not good.
He's going to miss 2.
He's garbage. I don't know. Don't pick Darnell Mooney.
All right, let's get into our creepers, speaking of people with bad hands. So last week I brought up Isaiah Davis and Garrett Wilson. I'm not a fan of this Jets offense at all. I think their defense is still somehow serviceable, even trading away their best players. But that offense is just clunky and just not good at all. Stay away from them. This week, I've got 2 players that I think you should probably just drop in your leagues because it's not looking good. One of them, believe it or not, is Keon Coleman. This is before we heard the news that he was benched again. But the writing was kind of on the wall last week. This team does not trust him, and this whole sport is really based upon trust. And if you don't have it, you're just not going to play. So Keon Coleman, man, drop him in your leagues. He's not going to be on the field. And if you're not going to be on the field, you're not going to score fantasy points. It's just that simple. Yeah. I would get rid of him and drop him like a rock. The second player that I've got is Rachaad White. Somebody who I've kind of been a fan of, but clearly is not going to be any sort of future there for him in that Bucks offense. You have people like Sean Tucker just exploding on the scene, Bucky Irving coming back and getting healthy. There's just not going to be any available touches for Rachaad White moving forward, and yeah, I think his efficiency has just tanked over the last couple of weeks, and it's just not been a productive player fantasy wise. And so you just got to move on and cut your ties and cut your losses and drop him. So
I agree with you on that one. Very inefficient player.
Yes.
My last week's creepers, we're almost done here, guys. My first creeper was Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I almost made him another creeper. He sucks. He's so bad, guys. 9 rushes, 28 yards, 4.3 fantasy points. Drop that bum. Hold on. This is off the cuff here. I'm just gonna look up his stats here because it's so bad. I'm just going to go in a row. 5.8 fantasy points, 4.2, 2.5, 5.1, 3.0, 4.3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His last 6 games as a starting running back for the Commanders. He's dead. Drop this guy. Sorry, that was off the cuff.
He's also on a bye, so it's probably a good time.
Well, yeah, great. Well, he still sucks, so it's the only time he's going to be good for your team is when he's not playing. Second creeper, Justin Fields. Last week, 15 to 26, 116 yards and an interception. 116 yards, that's great for a receiver, not a quarterback. 11 rushes for 67 yards and a touchdown. He did have 19.3 fantasy points, but he was bad for Tyrod Taylor this week. So I was right there. He's not viable. I don't know. Pretty much nobody on that team is viable at this point. Maybe just Breece Hall. My creeper for week 12, the first one is Keon Coleman. David also had him as game one. Projected 7.5 fantasy points versus the Buccaneers. As I said earlier, Keon Coleman, healthy scratch last week, and there is this week. He's also now been reported he is a healthy scratch. You cannot rely on this guy, even, if he's good enough to play, which, he's good enough to play, but he's scratched now. He's the 49th receiver overall in Sleeper and is unreliable. He's an experiment, and it's very much over at this point. 49% roster to leagues. As David said, you need to drop him. There's not, too many reasons to keep him at this point, I think. I don't know. Especially if he's not playing. So
especially if he doesn't have 2 hands. So
yeah. Like Darnell Mooney. My second and last creeper, Kamani Vidal. This week he's on a bye. He's owned by 79% of leagues in Sleeper. This guy has a really, really odd trend that I've noticed. He's been playing one really good game and then one really bad game, and one really good game, and then literally all season. It's really weird. Started since week 5. These are his fantasy points following week 5. Okay, week 5, 2.9 fantasy points. Week 6, 23.8. Week 7, 7.5. Week 8, 20.7. Week 9, 3. Week 10, 17.8. And then last week, week 11, 3. What is going on? This is the craziest roller coaster. It's insane. It's honestly one of the strangest things I've probably seen in fantasy football right now. He's not sustainable. He's unpredictable. And not only that, but the rookie first round pick of Marion Hampton is breathing down his neck and is suspected hopefully to come back from IR week 13. This week they're on bye. They said that he was projected to possibly come back after bye. So that's something to watch. I don't know if that's the case. Kamani Vidal, will become useless again. Not necessarily that he wasn't already useless every other game of the season this year so far, but none of that. Like I said, that's so weird. 2 to 23 to 7 to 23 to 17 to 3, just up and down like that.
Just huge swings too.
Yeah, really, really weird. And then my third, this is off the cuff, but I just thought of one. Darnell Mooney.
Just came to me. I don't know from
Darnell
where.
Mooney has on the year 16 catches for 224 yards. He is ranked as a 97th receiver. When Drake London was not in for the one game he played as the wide receiver 1, he had 1 catch for 15 yards for 2 fantasy points. So do with that with what you will. So
sounds like a stud to me. But
yeah. Darnell Mooney can die off my team. Not in real life. He's probably a good guy, but yeah, he does not need to be on my team. So. All right, guys, that is it for week 12 of the Commissioner's Couch podcast. We are so grateful that you guys are here. 240 people here live with us. Really, really grateful for all of you. Every week we, have a really good number that continues to be sustained. I just want to, reiterate once again that we're sponsored by the Inside Edge Network and LVP Productions, and also MossorMomentsPhotography.com, MOSSOR momentsphotography.com. Their husband and wife, Cleveland-based photography team, is my company, so go check us out, please.
Yeah, go check 'em out.
You know, for me, Ryan Mosser, for David Cahoon, my co-host, we just thank you guys so much. We will be live again next Wednesday, every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Be here early. It's a lot of fun, guys. Also, be sure if you want to, you can always comment, and we'll answer those. Also, we'll probably pick up the FMFT next week again. That's Fix My Fantasy Team, where we will basically put that out there. Then you guys can ask questions. Playoff push is coming up, so whether it's start sit questions or just any other kind, this week, most trade deadlines are ending, so probably won't be any more trade questions. But yeah, hit us up in our FMFT. I'll post that later on this week. Once again, we thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you next week, Wednesday at 9 o'clock for the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast.
Thanks, guys.